everybody. This is Celeste. I'm a Nationally Certified Interventionist. I'm a recovery coach and I'm also a family coach. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about toxic positivity. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what this is in a second. But I have to be honest, I really want to talk about this with you because toxic positivity is probably one of my biggest pet peeves in life. And, I really want you guys to comment. I want you to like this video if you feel like you've struggled with this situation, because I think it's really, really important. And I see toxic positivity in so many situations, like between coworkers, between family members, between friends. And what toxic positivity is when one person goes to another person with a struggle or a situation that they're not feeling good about, and the person says, well, just focus on the positive. At least you still have ABC. And tries to add a silver lining into the situation. And, maybe they're doing that with the best of intentions, but it actually has the reverse effect. So I'll give you an example to demonstrate this. So say I go to my friend Jane and I say, oh, Jane, it's been a rough week. I was laid off from my job yesterday and I'm really anxious. I don't know about how I'm going to pay the bills, and I don't know if I'm going to get another job with COVID, and I have all this stress around it. And Jane says to me, oh, well, just focus on the positive. You're smart. At least you've got some savings in the bank, and, you've got a great resume, and you'll find another job in no time. You have so much experience. You're so smart. You're so outgoing. You can find another job in no time. How many people have had this happen? Where, you go to somebody with a struggle and they just lay the positivity on you. And maybe they do it with the best of intentions, but I've had this happen to me so many times in my life. And like this video if you can relate to any of these feelings. But when it's happened to me, I felt frustrated. I feel like I'm not validated, like I'm not being heard, like I'm alone. And then I tend to shut down with that person, right? Because I know that they're just going to silver lining it for me. And it doesn't acknowledge what I'm going through. It doesn't validate my experience, right? Because I think anybody, say in that experience where they lose their job, they're going to feel anxious. They're going to feel stressed. They're going to feel worried about the future. It's a very uncertain world, and losing your job at the best of times can be a blow to the ego. It can leave you feeling hopeless and depressed and whatever. So, even with the best of intentions, that toxic positivity really denies that person's feelings. And I really feel like we live in this very superficial, two-dimensional world. And something that a lot of people tell me is that, and I hear this a couple times a week from people, is that when they're feeling depressed or anxious, I feel so alone in this. I don't feel like anybody else goes through this. And that is because we're not having these conversations. And when people try to talk about it, that toxic positivity comes up. Just focus on the positive. You've got a lot going for you. You'll find another husband, whatever. And so it really cuts people off from talking about the feelings that are related to their experience. And another thing that I really hear from people too is that in not talking about this and not dialoguing about these reactions to these situations, it really gets us denying our feelings and feeling scared to talk about it, and not developing positive coping strategies when they do come up. So what happens is that a lot of us end up, myself included, I've done this. I'm feeling depressed or anxious about a situation. I bottle it up. I don't know how to cope with it, and it makes it worse. And then what happens? Right? We're not talking to anybody. And then we've got to rush to the doctor and get our prescription for antidepressants and anti-anxiety. And not that those medications don't have a place. They absolutely do. But what I'm saying is that we're prescribing antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications in record numbers. And they can be very valid and very helpful in a lot of situations. But I think the compounding factor is that we're not talking about our feelings, we're not engaging with people, we're not creating those relationships where we can learn from one another, learn positive coping strategies, passing them on to our kids. Like so many of my clients, and this is another thing that I hear a couple times a week, is that I wish my parents would have taught me these coping strategies when I was younger. So that's another really big side effect of not talking and learning these coping strategies, is then the only way we know how to cope is that we go to the doctor, we get a prescription. And, like I said, medication can be very valid to help with certain aspects of depression, anxiety, because there is a biochemical thing that goes on in the brain. There's neurotransmitters that are either overactive, underactive, but we won't get into the science of it. But for me, I find that a lot of times with people, the biggest success is when you combine some of those medications with cognitive behavioral therapy and learning the coping strategies. And some people get to a point then where they no longer need their medications, but the medications can be very important for getting them through that humps and getting them through some of the symptoms of depression and anxiety so that they can really get those tools and coping strategies into place so that when they do come off the medications, they don't crash. So in the beginning, it's important to sometimes get those medications. Some people might be on medications long term, and others might, once they get those coping strategies, can go off of it. But I think that this is a really big side effect of this toxic positivity, is that we're not engaging, we're not talking about it, we're feeling socially isolated in these experiences, and like we can't talk to anybody about what we're going through. And when you're struggling and don't have that support, that's a hugely lonely place to be. And, in a place where disengaging from people and people that you love is a very common symptom of depression and anxiety. So then you're adding fuel to the fire that when this depressed and anxious person does reach out because they've got life struggles, you're denying them. You're denying their feelings. And so then they shut down even more. Right? It's so counterproductive. And I feel so strongly about this because we need those support systems in place for people that are struggling. So, I mean, the best thing you can do when somebody is struggling with some of these issues is just being there, being an ear, being supportive, right? Rather than saying, oh, just focus on the positive, saying, I understand that you're going through a really hard time and, it's really hard right now. How can I help you? How can I support you? And that can be very, very powerful. And sometimes it might just be that they need somebody to talk to. Other times it might be that maybe you can help them fill out a resume for their job, like to apply for jobs. Maybe you can do role playing with them for interviewing, things like that. So be very willing to, take some time with this person, because I think that'll help you develop those coping strategies and help you learn to talk about your feelings too when situations like that come up. And when you offer that support too, this is another common thing that with people that are depressed or anxious, if you say, how can I help support you? They may not know, right? And so that might be an opportunity where you can say, do you mind if I offer some suggestions, right? So say the friend that lost their job, right? You can call me, like say to them, one of my suggestions is call me if you're feeling stressed or anxious about money, or if you're feeling down because, your ego's taken a hit or whatever, or, down when you're ready, I can help you with your resume. We can do some role playing on interviewing, offer those things, right? Because that can help the person to feel too, like there's hope. So rather than trying to stay focused on the positive and at least you've got some savings, you're trying to influx that hope with some words, right? But if you offer that tangible support of, maybe I could proofread your resume and give you some suggestions. We could do some interview skills. So through your actions, you're actually providing more hope than offering an ear. You're providing more hope and support for that person than your silver lining. So that was just something that I really felt passionate about talking about, because there's not a lot out there on toxic positivity. And I feel like even with that person that's on the receiving end of toxic positivity, sometimes you can feel like you're crazy. Like only person that feels this way. Like, why am I taking this so hard? Like, am I crazy for feeling this way? Absolutely not. So, I really wanted to validate that as well. So, if you're struggling with some of this toxic positivity in your life, and you want to reach out, you want to get some support, send me a message. We'll get on the phone, we'll chit chat, we'll develop a program specifically for you, and we'll go for it. We'll get you some support, we'll work on some goals, and we'll get you feeling better. So absolutely send me a DM. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.